Hey guys, it's Dr. Green. I'm here. We did a recent expo at the Gluten-Free Summit in Charlotte, and I was one of the major speakers talking on autoimmune disease and the link to food sensitivities. We unfortunately were not able to record that seminar, so I want to bring it again to you here live from my office. Now, again, we are talking about the links between food sensitivities and really autoimmune disease and what drives autoimmune problems in patients. Why do we have so many chronic issues in this country that are going unhelped? Once again, my name is Dr. Akiba Green. I'll give you guys a little bit of information about myself. I am a doctor of chiropractic, and I know a lot of people say, oh, what's a chiropractor doing talking about autoimmune disease? We do a lot of workshops, a lot of lectures, and I help a lot of patients who have thyroid problems, who have autoimmune disease, who have chronic health issues. The key thing is, as a chiropractor, I am really the best prepared doctor to handle these kinds of health issues, because if I had gone through traditional medical training, I would be giving all these autoimmune patients prednisone or methotrexate or some other medication and saying, live with it. But because of my inherent underlining training as a doctor of chiropractic, it means we don't use surgery and we don't use drugs, and we look for alternative health methods to get the body to heal itself. Now, that's great. More importantly than that, though, I'm board certified in integrative medicine. I am board eligible as a doctoral clinical nutritionist. I am fellowship trained from the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine and the University of South Florida Medical School in integrative cancer therapy. I am certified American Functional Neurology Institute. I am certified as a functional medicine practitioner, and I am certified as a gluten practitioner. What that means is the training that I've gone through, those certifications that I have, allow me to be a better doctor. They allow me to help my patients. And the information that I've gained over the past several years in hundreds of hours of postgraduate training allow me to better help you as you're watching this seminar. So there's two docs I always like to give a great shout out to. The first is Dr. Datis Karazian. He is a wonderful thyroid expert, one of the top thyroid experts in the world, has a private practice in San Diego, and he has one of the best books that's been written on the thyroid. Why do you have thyroid symptoms when your lab tests are normal? Also, Dr. Kevin Connors. Dr. Connors is a great cancer guy, and really, he's one of the top alternative cancer doctors. I've learned a tremendous amount from him and through my training with South Florida Medical School. The reason why cancer comes up, and the reason why it's important as we talk to you about your autoimmune disease with cancer, is because my training in integrative cancer therapy has really helped me understand how the immune system works, how autoimmune conditions generate into cancer. If we're helping a cancer patient, what are we doing to help that lesser evolved, less serious, but no less debilitating autoimmune disease that you're dealing with? It gives me the training that I need to help a wide range of immune problems. I've got three things for you to know today. First, and most importantly, I am literally here to reinvent your life. You came here, you're on my website, you're on YouTube, you're looking on Facebook, trying to find information on autoimmune disease. We're going to add maximum positive impact to each one of you. But most importantly, by the time you're done with this workshop, you're going to have an exit strategy. What can you do starting right now to feel better, to get a change in your life, to get your life back? How do we improve your health today? And I'm going to tell you, it's going to involve some lifestyle changes. Now, autoimmune disease in the U.S. is increasing every single year. There are more cases than ever that are not going diagnosed. In most cases, unfortunately, continue to progress. And here's the thing, conventional healthcare has very little to offer besides steroids or suppressing immune medications. So conventional and alternative healthcare doesn't fully understand autoimmunity. And the key thing is it all leads to tissue destruction. Our immune system, in a very basic concept with all autoimmune conditions, is mistakenly attacking healthy tissues in our body. It's making auto-antibodies against ourselves. So your immune system thinks that a part of your body is an infection, and it's trying to remove or kill itself. Can you name 5 autoimmune conditions? Probably not. Hashimoto's is autoimmune thyroid. It's one of the top causes of hypothyroidism. Psoriasis is a skin condition that's an autoimmune disease. Diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. How about celiac disease? How about lupus, pernicious anemia, Sjogren's syndrome? This one a lot of people have not heard of. It is the #1 autoimmune condition that affects women. All these conditions are incredibly important to understand because they're all things that we deal with. And if you have one, there's a good chance that you can develop more. And the reason for that is parts of your immune system aren't working properly. They're attacking. And so when you're autoimmune, it means you're autoimmune, which means your body's autoimmune. The only difference is which tissue is attacked. The mechanism is always the same. If you're autoimmune against one tissue, you're probably autoimmune against other tissues in your body, and that's what we're talking about. Is there a cure? Can you cure autoimmunity? Maybe, maybe not. Traditional medicine would say absolutely not. The best we can do is suppress the immune system with drugs to support the body until more damage occurs. Functional medicine says otherwise. You know, some practitioners will say there's no cure, but there are many natural protocols to greatly improve your life and preserve your body. On the other hand, there's a belief that if you balance your body and eliminate all symptoms, it is cured of the disease. I think the reality probably lies somewhere in between. So when we talk about an autoimmune disease, when the body attacks itself, we're talking about Th1 and Th2. These are big words, T helper 1 and T helper 2. And there's a balance that goes on in your body. I like using a seesaw analogy. So here's the deal. My daughter, she's about 8 years old. She's sitting on a seesaw. And the seesaw is going a little bit onto her side. Now a football player, let's call a high school football player, maybe a senior, big guy, sits on the other side. And you know what's going to happen. And he plops down, my daughter's going to go flying. And you're going to have a shift in that balance. That's your immune system. And when we talk about Th1 or Th2, one half of your immune system gets pushed, it gets driven dominant. And balancing the system goes a far way in reducing a patient's symptoms. One of the big goals we have is how do we take that seesaw and bring it back to normal? How do we take your immune system and bring it back to normal? The goal is to find why it's being pushed and then strengthen the immunity so it doesn't get abnormal over and over again. The more out of balance that your immune system is on Th1 or Th2, the more tissue destruction there is. Now, what causes it to go out of balance is the real question. I talk about two major types of triggers your immune system will drive into dominance with. It's what we call stressors or dysregulators, and what we call active antigens. With dysregulators, it could be inflammation from poor diet, bad blood sugar, bad adrenal glands, hormone issues, neurological issues, thyroid, low vitamins. The antigen side are what we call invaders. Chronic infections, food, sensitivities, environmental toxins, leaky gut syndrome. And the way we know what your individual triggers are is through proper testing. Now, how many of you had a talk with your doctor about what your immune system has done to your body? They told you were autoimmune. Did they tell you why you were autoimmune? You had your thyroid removed due to cancer. Did they tell you why the cancer developed? You had that skin disease that would never go away to any medication. Did I tell you what's driving it? Why not? I think that you deserve to understand your condition better. And, you know, I'm sick and tired of not only you, my entire patient population, my friends, my family, not getting answers from their doctors. And the key thing is, I know right now, the doctors that you're most likely have consulted with, they don't know what they're doing when it comes to autoimmune disease. How long have you had your health problems? I see patients in my clinic, when you come in for our workshops or when you come in to see me as a new patient, who have had their autoimmune diseases for years. And they've been to the doctor, and another doctor, and another doctor. And you know what? They never get better. And that's why I know that your doctors don't know what they're doing, because you've been living with this problem for so long, despite traditional treatments. Now, why doesn't your doctor know how to treat you? Well, the reality is the overwhelming majority of physicians don't read medical journals. There's no time in our modern insurance-mandated world. Many of the doctors you see, you may not realize this, but many of the doctors you see work for a bigger clinic, a bigger company, maybe a hospital, but they're an employee. And what that means is there's rules that they have to follow in order to treat you as a patient. One of the big rules that they have to do is they have to see you in 5 to 8 minutes. If they don't see you in that 5 to 8 minute time period, they could literally lose their job. They could be fired for seeing too few patients. That's really not fair, but that's reality. And we're in such a horrible medical system because it's driven by insurance. And you know what? So what do the doctors do? They see patients every 5 to 8 minutes, and they just clock in and they clock out. And unfortunately, it's taken away the ability for these physicians to really spend the time they need to help patients. They rely on what they learned in school 15, 20, even 30 years ago. And quite simply, this information is outdated. You know, at the end of the day, only one thing really matters. It's results. And you're not getting any results. You have an autoimmune disease. If you're living with your disease, and you're managing your disease, and you're not improving your disease, and you're not getting better, and you're not healing your body, you're not getting results. And that's all that matters. And you know, the reason you see your doctor is not because he's good. We've established he's not. It's quite literal. You're still suffering. But you're seeing him most likely because insurance covers him. And when you go to your doctor and they say, I will see you in 6 months and we'll check on you, and you go back in 6 months and they say, everything looks good, I'll see you in 6 months, and you say, but I have all these symptoms, and I continue to have all these symptoms. Why waste your time? I have a patient who he comes up, drives about 2 hours to come see me every week, and he's been with me about 3 months now. And when he started, he had been going to his doctor, trying to figure out all his health problems. We're talking, went on disability because of fatigue, brain fog, severe neurological, severe metabolic issues. A lot of health problems were befalling him. And his doctor said, everything looks great, I'll see you in a month. When his doctor said that, the patient said, oh geez, like nothing's different. And he immediately took his health into his own hands. He started doing research on his own, he found our office, and he decided to consult with us. And we ended up being able to help him. And he went back to his doctor recently, and the doctor goes, well, did I fail you? And what the patient told the doctor is really the key thing. It's not that doctor's individual fault. The patient told the doctor, no, the system failed me. Because the system is not equipped to handle these kinds of health problems. So, like I said, they're never going to get you better because they don't know where to look. And that's the thing, you need to know this. And if you're in front of a computer, write this down if you can. You're suffering from what I call a web of physiological dysfunction. Again, a web of physiological dysfunction. None of you in here have just one problem. Physiologically, it's an impossibility. And what I mean by a web of physiological dysfunction, this right behind me. All these things are going on. All these things are driving. You have all these different symptoms: liver problems, hormone problems, thyroid issues, gut issues, adrenal issues, blood sugar, mind-body, brain issues, cellular dysfunction, oxidative stress, emotional issues, immune system issues. All these things are driving the symptoms that you experience as your autoimmune disease. It looks very confusing, and it can be, which is why many doctors give up and pass the buck to the next specialist. If you don't address certain specific problems in your web, you will never fix your autoimmune disease. And the first thing we're going to talk about is your thyroid. Now, a bad thyroid is going to equal a bad brain, and that's going to equal a bad gut. Now, there's a stat I want to give you. 90% of hypothyroidism is due to autoimmune disease. This was published in 1998 in the Journal of Endocrine and Metabolic Disorders, the #1 thyroid journal in the world. When this was published, it laid the groundwork for what every doctor knows. Hypothyroidism, low thyroid function, is autoimmune. It's actually the second most common autoimmune disease affecting women behind Sjogren's. And the key thing is, if you have Hashimoto's, then we know you're autoimmune. That's autoimmune thyroid disease based on antibody production. But if you have hypothyroidism, your immune system is why your thyroid is getting hypo. It's why it's getting damaged. So it's still an autoimmune problem. Your thyroid affects literally everything in your body. If we talk about symptoms associated with thyroid disease, fatigue is a big symptom. Weight gain, even on a low-calorie diet, is a big symptom. You talk about morning headaches that wear off as the day goes on. Talk about depression, anxiety, brain fog. Neurological symptoms are huge with thyroid disease. Constipation, gut issues are huge with thyroid disease. How about stomach aches, gas, bloating, other stomach problems? How about cold weather sensitivity? How about poor circulation, cold hands and feet? How about no matter how much sleep you get, you're still tired. You just never get the rest that your body feels like it needs. Itchy, dry skin, dry, brittle hair, and hair loss, especially the lateral 1/3 of the eyebrow. So, the key thing is every single cell in your body has thyroid receptors, which means that the thyroid is incredibly important. For those of you who've been diagnosed with thyroid problems, did your doctor tell you what the thyroid does? Did he go into how many different things are affected by your thyroid? This book, Dr. T. Skarazian's book, is a great book. Why do I still have thyroid symptoms? My lab tests are normal. All my patients get copies of this book. It's a book that I highly recommend. The second area we're going to look at is called adrenal dysfunction. The adrenal gland are two little glands that sit on top of your kidneys. And they release cortisol and other hormones in response to stress. Now, the cortisol, when it's released, sets your sleep cycle. It helps blood sugar get used by the body. And it affects other hormones. Testosterone, estrogen, DHEA, progesterone, DHT. All these hormones are affected when cortisol is abnormal. And here's the thing, we're always under stress. So our body can never handle that cortisol the way it should. Everything that we need to do is to help make sure that our adrenals can function better. And it's interesting to think of how far-reaching the adrenal gland is. A lot of thyroid symptoms are actually adrenal issues, but the adrenal gland has a tremendous impact also on the brain. If you're late for work and you're in your house, what can you never find? Your keys. The adrenal gland, when you're stressed, has a direct impact on a part of the brain called the hippocampus, which is responsible for short-term memory. So when you have increased stress, you're going to have decreased brain function, brain fog. And like I said, there's a direct correlation between the adrenals and your brain because it destroys the brain when it's abnormal. Thyroid symptoms, sex hormone symptoms are often really adrenal symptoms and vice versa. Think about hair loss, fatigue, sleep problems, hot flashes. These are all, they sound like hormone problems. They sound like thyroid problems. They can be adrenal problems. And we're all at risk for adrenal dysfunction. No matter whether you're a child, retired, or you're working at Bank of America, you're always at risk. Number 3 is sex hormones. With males, we're talking issues that lead to andropause, prostate disease. With females, we're talking fertility issues, menstrual cycle problems, menopause. There's nothing worse than a patient, a lady, who's 10 or 15 years postmenopausal, still dealing with hot flashes. You don't need to. There's a solution for fixing them, and you need to find that solution. Why do we have hormone problems? Number 1 reason why we have hormone problems is blood sugar involvement. Especially with females, insulin resistance. How about low testosterone? Insulin resistance. Blood sugar drives it. How about drinking? That suppresses it. All these issues are key. And drinking, I'm talking about alcohol. Adrenal involvement. The adrenals are responsible for 50% of hormone abnormalities, especially with females. Thyroid involvement. The brain sends signals down. And it's actually part of the brain called the HP axis, the hypothalamus pituitary axis. One hormone affects the other. And the HP axis controls all of our hormones in our body. Thyroid hormones like TSH, adrenal hormones like cortisol regulation, male and female hormones, LH, FSH, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. If you have a problem with one, it leads to a problem with the rest. Find me a lady who's had a hysterectomy who doesn't have a thyroid issue. You won't be able to because there's a link there. You talk about how one piece leads to another piece. Number 4 is going to be unstable blood sugar. Now, when we talk blood sugar, the optimal functioning blood sugar is listed as 85 to 99. But practically, when you hit 100, that's insulin resistant or pre-diabetic. So how come 99 is safe if 100 isn't? It's pretty close. So my range that I like to really see patients at, on the high end is going to be 95, and on the low end is going to be 80 to 85. Some people do well at 80, other people get a little hypoglycemic or low blood sugar. If it gets too low, it's going to kill nerves in your brain and in your extremities, in your feet. If it gets too high, that's insulin resistance, that leads to diabetes, and that can lead to everything from nerve damage all the way up to losing a limb. For maximum results, to fix your life, I have to fix your blood sugar. Anemia is another big issue. When we talk about anemia, I don't mean iron. I mean red blood cell dysfunction. Many different things can lead to it. Vitamin or mineral deficiencies like iron, B12, or folic acid can lead to an anemia. It can be caused by infections in the gut. It can be caused by blood loss from menstruation, colon or stomach microbleeds, pregnancy, trauma. Many different things can lead to blood loss. But it can also be caused by autoimmune disease, pernicious anemia, or chronic inflammation. How about chronic infections and malignancy? And there's one key thing I want to touch on with B12 and folic acid. There's a big $3 medical term you need to be familiar with. It's called methylation. Methylation is how your body takes nutrients and turns them into chemical processes. Specifically things like folic acid, B12, selenium, zinc, betaine, and a whole bunch of other nutrients that work in the body. Choline is another one. What happens is your body takes these nutrients, uses them, and then it's able to fight free radical damage, oxidative stress, and cell growth is able to continue. So literally, how well B12 and folic acid work in your body is a direct indication of how much inflammation your body develops. And there's a gene test. It's called an MTHFR gene test. This is the folic acid gene test, and it helps us determine if you have this problem. If you do, that could be why supplements don't work for you. It could be why medications don't work for you. It could be why you have multiple food or chemical sensitivities. And it's something that can be addressed properly. Poor gut function is another huge thing. The father of medicine, Hippocrates, said, look to the gut, you'll find the cause, or the origin or cause of almost all human illness. Now, 80% of your immune system is in your gut. That means if you have an immune problem, you have a gut problem. Poor gut function is almost always due to one of two things. Food sensitivities, I know everybody always loves talking about this, and we're going to teach you a good bit, or infections, gut infections. How do we know if you have these problems? Well, how about healthy levels of bacteria? You know, we have good bacteria in our body. You heard of probiotics, you heard you can get yogurt that has bacteria. The yogurt doesn't have a lot of bacteria and it's got dairy, which could be an issue for some of you. So I don't recommend going that route. The key thing is we have 5 trillion bacteria in our body. And if we have low bacteria, we may need a couple 100 billion a day to help restore that. And eating yogurt may give you 100 million. So it doesn't really do anything. But you need healthy levels of bacteria. One of the reasons, besides fighting off infections and helping your immune system and gut grow healthy, is these good bacteria are responsible for 30% of something called short-chain fatty acids. Why do we care? Because this is 30% of your energy. Your daily energy comes from these bacteria. A stomach acid imbalance is huge. I see a lot of people who have low stomach acid, less people have high stomach acid, and the reality is most people who have symptoms of acid reflux don't truly have too much acid. They have a digestive problem. Leaky gut syndrome is a condition that leads to autoimmune disease. It's where your intestine, your small intestine, is literally getting perforated. And you're getting holes in it. You're getting breakdowns in those channels that keep stuff in and out. So toxins, inflammation, and foods are able to get out of your intestine and go attack other parts of your body. It's not good. Food sensitivities are a huge, huge issue. And we're going to talk about those. We're also going to talk about gut infections. So the key thing is with food sensitivities, you have gluten, dairy, soy, egg, yeast, or others. And you know, if you have these conditions, well, what's leading to it? Leaky gut syndrome is a prerequisite to autoimmune disease. And a lot of these food sensitivities we're talking about get developed because of leaky gut. There's actually Dr. Alessio Fasano, who's the number one celiac expert in the world. He's at the University of Maryland, Baltimore Centers for Celiac Disease and Research. Published a paper 3 years ago that said zonulin and its regulation of intestinal barrier function, leaky gut, it's the biological door to inflammation, autoimmunity, and cancer. This paper basically links what science is now saying, that leaky gut drives these problems. And leaky gut, like I said, literally allows food particles to be exposed to the gut's immune system. It triggers a system-wide immune response, and it can lead to inflammation. This can cause insulin resistance and more fat storage due to immune reactions. Gut flora changes can lead to insulin resistance on its own, and changes in the gut flora can increase the storage of calories as fat. So weight gain can be something that we see with leaky gut. But I know food sensitivities are a huge, huge question mark that we have, and this is a big thing that we always wonder about. Why do we have sensitivities? But you know, we're not talking about allergies, and food allergies are a severe reaction from the immune system. They can be instantaneous and often life-threatening. We're talking peanuts, shrimp, oftentimes you'll see asthma or anaphylactic shock. A food reaction is something that some people see, and it's not severe oftentimes, but you get some symptoms: upset stomach, coffee jitters, gastritis. What we're talking about is a food sensitivity. There may not have an immediate immune reaction to it. It may be silent, and it may have no detectable symptoms. But the key thing is, when we talk food sensitivities like gluten, we're talking about a reaction where your immune system attacks a piece of your body when you eat that food. And there's been a sharp increase in interest in research on the topic of gluten sensitivity. Although we should probably be labeling the subject gluten toxicity in order to shift the focus back onto the cause of the problems, gluten itself. In 1971, there were 71 studies listed in PubMed, the official medical literature database which references gluten. 2 years ago, 2012, there were almost 10,776. There's a big issue on gluten. Everybody gets it, everybody knows it, and nobody seems to understand why. But I can tell you what, there's a huge, huge shift in how we view the role of wheat in our diets. The gluten-free industry is reaching over $6 billion a year in sales. And this shift is because people aren't feeling good when they eat the food that's been given to us. Now this is an important study right here. You see that iceberg? The British Medical Journal, 1999, stated that 87% of people have the genotype, the gene for celiac disease, as well as a positive biopsy. That means they have celiac. Small villus atrophies showed up in their gut, but they have no symptoms. Only 12.5% have symptoms. So you could very well be living with an issue, a food sensitivity issue, a celiac issue, and not know it because there's no symptoms. In 2001, gastroenterology said for every symptomatic patient with celiac disease, there are 8 patients with celiac disease and no GI symptoms. Again, big medical journals saying this over and over again. And yet doctors are ignoring this as a possible cause of your autoimmune disease. In fact, according to scientists, if researchers said biopsy the brain instead of the gut first, celiac disease would be considered predominantly a neurological disorder and not a gut disorder, because that's where so much of the negative impacts on gluten occur in the body. Hashimoto's, autoimmune thyroid patients with symptomless celiac disease require 49% more T4 to balance TSH compared to non-celiac Hashimoto's patients. If you're on 50 micrograms of levothyroxine or Synthroid, going off of gluten could help you come off your medication. Talk to your doctor about that. That may be enough to make the difference. And gluten overstimulates the immune system. There's no practical difference between celiac disease and gluten sensitivity. Experience shows that a gluten-free diet is a must for any autoimmune disease. The problem really does lie with incomplete gluten testing, though. Now, a lot of people said, my doctor tested me for gluten and I was told I'm fine. It's because most labs only test two aspects of gluten: alpha-gliadin, or tissue transglutaminase antibodies. What about the other parts of wheat? Gliadin, glutenin, or the lectins, deaminated gliadins, and 8 others. You may be negative for alpha-gliadin but positive for beta or gamma-gliadin, and it won't show up on the test that you had done at your local lab. The most accurate gluten sensitivity testing is currently through Cyrex Laboratories. There's a test that's called Array number 3. It tests 13 aspects of immune response to wheat. It includes several markers which help to confirm if there's an autoimmune reaction in the body and where it is located at. But like I said, it's not just gluten, it could be all these other foods. If you have gluten sensitivity, Dr. Fasano and Dr. Vajani, R.A. Vajani is the medical director at Cyrex Labs. He's one of the top researchers in the country on immune reactions, states that 70% of gluten-sensitive patients have a lactose intolerance. 50% of gluten-sensitive patients have a have a dairy sensitivity. So if you have a gluten sensitivity, there's a 1 in 2 chance that you also have an issue with dairy. What about coffee? What about soy or egg? What about gluten-free oats, yeast? What about gluten-free grains like tapioca, teff, sorghum, quinoa, or buckwheat? Even corn, rice, or potato. You have to look at all those foods that could be causing reactions. Now what happens if you have one food that you're eating that has an immune reaction every day? Then your body is getting attacked every time you eat that food. What happens if you have 10 foods that every time you eat them you're getting an immune reaction? You have this huge inflammatory response that you're dealing with you have to fix. Infections are the last piece we want to talk about with the gut. We're talking about bacterial infections like H. pylori, Klebsiella, and E. coli. Parasites, you like sushi? What about swimming in lakes? Lake Norman, Lake Wiley, or here locally? Well, you got bugs in that water. If your immune system's weak, don't drink the water. How about when you travel? And I don't just mean overseas. You could travel domestically and pick stuff up. How about a yeast infection, candida issues, Saccharomyces? How about a fungus infection, fungal infection, or a mold infection? Infections are huge. And I'd be remiss to not mention viruses as well. I see a number of patients who have an Epstein-Barr infection that can be one of the underlying causes of their autoimmune disease. Epstein-Barr is what's associated with mono, with cytomegalovirus, as well as 20 other autoimmune diseases. My office's primary job is to fix chronic autoimmune problems. That's my specialty. We practice a neurometabolic model of treating these chronic health conditions. What that means is you could do the medical approach, which is probably where you're coming from. Just wait until there's tissue destruction that is so bad, and then squash the entire immune system with steroids. Symptom management does not address the underlying metabolic causes. With the thyroid, go on Synthroid, go on Armour. Chase TSH levels instead of fixing the cause of your problem. Why does the immune system keep attacking it? Medical doctors will prescribe antidepressants. Here's something for your mood. Here's something for this. Here's something for this. Here's acid reflux medication. Why am I having these problems though? With the brain, they'll give you SSRIs, anxiety meds. They don't fix the problem. What about you eat excitotoxins like genetically modified ingredients, glyphosate, MSG, or aspartame, which contribute to brain dysfunction? In functional medicine, our approach is to remove all immune triggers. And yes, GMO foods and clean living is important, but so are making sure that you have all food sensitivities removed out of your diet. And that it requires proper testing. Do you have an infection? Find it and kill it. Do you have a blood sugar imbalance? Do you have adrenal problems? Do you have thyroid problems? Do you have sex hormone imbalances? Look at every aspect of it. Look at it thoroughly and work to balance the system out so you don't have continued symptoms. Do you have a liver problem or gallbladder problem? Do you have impaired methylation? That B12, folic acid, and that MTHFR gene test needs to be looked at. What about vitamin deficiencies? How about supplements causing problems? Sorry, a lot of people are on supplements and you know what happens? is they're on supplements and it's making them worse because those supplements are pushing the immune system the wrong way. And you know what? In my neurometabolic approach to care, it's my job to identify why your immune system is attacking your body, to remove the why, and then to modulate the immune system. Use dietary modification. Use targeted supplements to correct what we find in your labs. Lifestyle changes are vital. We talked about gluten as an example. I have not found an autoimmune patient, ever, who doesn't have food as a portion of their disease. Food sensitivities are vital for improving your condition. They may not be the underlying cause, but they're a piece of the puzzle, always. You have to address neurological misfiring in brain function. I use functional neurology, brain-based therapy, and neurofeedback therapy in my clinic. And the whole key thing is to look at you as a whole person, not just the condition itself. With that being said, this workshop was one that we did at the expo, but I told you my goal was to reinvent your life. Life is always a matter of choices. I've done that. I feel like I've given you information you did not have before you sat with me for the last 30 to 40 minutes. But we know that knowledge alone does nothing. It takes action to get results. If you're interested in finally getting answers and want a doctor who understands you and your chronic health problems, hi, my name is Dr. Akiba Green. It was great to meet you. I want you to visit me on the web, drakibagreen.com. Visit me at my office. We're in Cornelius, North Carolina. It's the Lake Norman, Charlotte area. Call our office. Let's get you scheduled for an appointment. The phone number is 704-987-3993. What are you waiting for? Make the difference in your life that you've been looking for, and see if I can help you once and for all. Thank you very much.